Most people think wealth begins when they finally make enough. In reality, wealth begins when behavior changes long before income does. This is not a motivational talk. This is not about dreaming bigger or believing harder. This is about math and psychology, neither of which care how badly you want something. The first lie, I'll fix it when I earn more. This lie ruins more lives than any bad investment ever could. People tell themselves, I just need more money. Once I get that, I'll start saving. I'll start investing. I'll be disciplined. But behavior doesn't magically improve with income. It hardens. If you're disorganized with little money, you'll be chaotic with more. If you spend impulsively now, you'll spend impulsively later, just at a higher level. If you avoid discomfort now, you'll avoid it forever. Income doesn't change habits. It exposes them. This is why so many people who look successful on the outside are financially fragile on the inside. Their lifestyle grew faster than their discipline, and the gap between what they earn and what they spend never widened. Without that gap, wealth cannot form. Comfort is the silent killer. Most people don't ruin themselves dramatically. They do it comfortably. They choose convenience over control, relief over leverage, feeling good today over being free tomorrow. Comfort feels harmless because it doesn't announce itself as danger. It feels deserved, normal, justified. But comfort compounds just in the wrong direction. Every small decision to avoid discomfort trains your brain to seek relief instead of progress. Over time, that preference becomes identity. And once it becomes identity, it becomes very hard to break. Discipline feels heavy in the moment, but light over time. Regret feels light in the moment, but grows heavier every year. You don't get to avoid pain. You only get to choose which kind you'll live with. Why the first 100,000 feels impossible. The first 100,000 is miserable. It's slow, it's boring, it's socially unrewarding. For a long time, it feels like nothing is happening. The numbers barely move. The effort feels disproportionate to the reward. And that's exactly why most people quit before they ever reach it. The first 100,000 demands behavior that looks strange to everyone around you. You'll walk when other people drive. You'll eat simply while others post restaurant photos. You'll say no to things that look harmless and normal and earned. And while you're doing this, you'll watch people who don't appear smarter than you spend freely and look like they're winning. That's the psychological tax. Most people don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because they refuse to be uncomfortable on purpose. They need proof that they're winning now. They need validation. They need visible progress. So they buy things that create the illusion of success and permanently trade away the reality of it. The first 100,000 is not about money. It's about who you're willing to disappoint others or your future self. Validation is expensive. Humans are social creatures. We care deeply about how we're perceived. That instinct kept us alive long before money existed. But in a modern economy, that instinct is expensive. People spend enormous amounts of money trying to signal success to people who are not funding their future and will not rescue them when things go wrong. Nice cars, upgraded apartments, designer labels, expensive habits disguised as self-care. None of these are rewards. They're obligations. And once you accept those obligations, you lock yourself into a level of spending that forces you to keep running even when you're tired, even when you hate the work, even when you want out. The performance never ends, and the bill always comes due. Why looking rich keeps you poor. Here's a truth almost nobody wants to accept. People with money tend to look unimpressive. People without money work very hard to look impressive. Real wealth is quiet because it doesn't need validation. Fake wealth is loud because it's trying to convince others and itself that it's real. Every dollar spent signaling success is a dollar that can't buy freedom later, and freedom is the only thing that actually matters. The order of operations is everything. Most people handle money in the worst possible order. They pay everyone else first: rent, transportation, subscriptions, convenience, impulse spending, small indulgences that don't feel dangerous on their own. And if anything is left over, maybe they save it. That guarantees one outcome: stagnation. You're treating your future like an afterthought. And afterthoughts don't get funded. Wealth doesn't begin with a big number. It begins with reversing the order. Pay yourself first, even if it feels embarrassing. You need to pay yourself first, even if the number feels insulting, even if it feels symbolic, especially then, because wealth doesn't begin with money. It begins with habit. Every time you pay yourself before you pay everyone else, you teach your brain something critical. Your future matters. Repeated long enough, that belief becomes discipline. And discipline is what separates people who escape from people who remain trapped. Think about how seriously you treat obligations to others. Miss a rent payment and consequences appear immediately. Letters, calls, penalties. But when you skip paying your future self, you act like nothing happened. The cost is just delayed. It arrives years later as anxiety, limited options, and permanent pressure. No one is coming to rescue you. This is uncomfortable, but it's freeing once you accept it. No employer is coming to save you. No government program will make you wealthy. No lucky break will fix disorganization. If you don't make the transfer from survival to stability yourself, it doesn't happen. And that transfer starts with one rule: pay yourself first. Non-negotiable. High-interest debt is a mathematical dead end. If you're carrying high-interest debt, the math alone disqualifies you from getting ahead. You cannot build wealth while paying double-digit interest against yourself. That's not pessimism. That's arithmetic. You're climbing uphill while compound force pulls you backward. Borrowing to impress people who don't care is one of the most efficient forms of self-sabotage available. There is a narrow exception for reasonable shelter. Beyond that, if you can't pay cash, the timing is wrong. That doesn't mean you're incapable. It means you're early. You can't have maximum lifestyle and maximum freedom at the same time. The trade-off exists whether you admit it or not. Complexity exists to confuse you. Anytime someone tries to sell you something wrapped in complexity, thick paperwork, glossy charts, commissions, you should slow down. Complexity rarely exists to help you. It exists to confuse you just enough that you stop asking the right questions. Over a lifetime, avoiding complexity will save you from enormous amounts of pain. Most people don't have an income problem. They have a clarity problem. Money doesn't disappear mysteriously. It leaks, small amounts, constantly. Subscriptions you forgot about, convenience spending, impulse purchases. Because no single expense feels catastrophic, nothing ever gets fixed. The solution isn't complicated, but it's uncomfortable. You have to track every dollar for a short period of time, not forever, just long enough to remove the fog. When behavior becomes visible, excuses collapse. Awareness creates accountability. Accountability creates change. Most people avoid this step because confusion is comfortable. Clarity demands action. Awareness changes everything. Once you see your behavior clearly, something important happens. You realize you're not helpless. You're misallocating. You're spending meaningful amounts of money on things that add very little to your life and almost nothing to your future. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Waste becomes obvious. Impulse purchases feel heavier. discomfort becomes useful. That discomfort is not punishment, it's information. Why most people never escape. Most people stay poor not because they lack intelligence, but because they avoid discomfort and chase validation. They confuse activity with progress. They confuse income with stability. They confuse comfort with success. And they never build the one thing that actually creates freedom: margin. Margin is the gap between what you earn and what you spend. Margin creates options. Options create freedom. Without margin, life becomes reactive. With margin, life becomes deliberate. Part EI, the first 100,000. And why boring is the price of freedom. The hardest part of building wealth is not earning money. It's waiting without visible progress. Waiting without applause. Waiting while other people appear to be passing you. This is where most people fail, not because they lack intelligence or opportunity, but because they misunderstand how progress actually works. The first 100,000 is not slow by accident. It's slow by design. Compounding does not reward effort evenly. It rewards patience disproportionately. And patience is a skill most people never develop because modern life trains them to expect immediate feedback for everything. Messages arrive instantly. Entertainment is on demand. Purchases deliver overnight. Money does not work that way. The early phase of compounding feels broken. You save, you invest, and nothing dramatic happens. The numbers move, but they don't feel meaningful. The effort feels insulting compared to the outcome. This is where the doubt starts. You begin to question whether it's worth it. You wonder if you're missing something. You start looking sideways at people who seem to be doing better with less discipline. That moment is the filter. People who quit here never fail financially in a dramatic way. They fail quietly. They drift. They tell themselves stories about why it wouldn't have worked anyway. They convince themselves that the system is rigged, or that they were unlucky, or that now just isn't the right time. People who push through don't feel confident either. They feel uncertain and uncomfortable, but they keep going anyway. That difference looks small in the moment. Over time, it becomes everything. The first 100,000 is not about returns. It's about proof. Proof that you can delay gratification. Proof that you can act without validation. Proof that you can keep going when progress feels invisible. Once you prove that to yourself, everything else becomes easier. Not because life suddenly gets fair, but because you've built the internal structure required to benefit from compounding instead of sabotaging it. Most people talk about compounding as if it's a math concept. It's not. It's a behavioral test. Compounding only works when it's allowed to work uninterrupted. That means not touching the money, not reacting emotionally, not chasing whatever is exciting this year, not pulling funds out because you're bored, impatient, or anxious. This is where people quietly destroy themselves. Every time you interrupt compounding, you don't just lose the money you withdraw. You destroy all the future growth that money could have produced. That loss never feels dramatic in the moment. It feels reasonable, justified, temporary, but over decades, it's catastrophic. This is why patience matters more than intelligence in investing. You don't need to be brilliant. You need to be boring for long enough that math overwhelms emotion. Most people do the opposite. They crave action because action feels productive. Waiting feels lazy. So they shuffle money constantly. They react to headlines. They chase what just went up. They panic when things go down. Each move triggers fees, taxes, and lost momentum. They say they believe in compounding, but their behavior works against it at every opportunity. They plant seeds and then dig them up every few months to see if they're growing. For most people, the correct strategy is painfully simple, low cost, diversified, regular contributions, minimal interference, no drama, no stories, no excitement. And that's exactly why most people reject it. It doesn't make them feel clever. It doesn't give them something to brag about. It doesn't satisfy the urge for novelty. Excitement is expensive. Boring is profitable. The safest way to get what you want is not to chase it aggressively, but to deserve it through consistent behavior over time. This approach lacks glamour, but it works reliably, and reliability is underrated by people who want everything. Another quiet destroyer of progress is lifestyle inflation. Income goes up, expenses follow immediately. A raise arrives and it vanishes into a nicer car, a better apartment, more dining out, more convenience. The person feels richer, but nothing fundamentally changes. There is no widening gap between what they earn and what they spend, and without that gap, wealth cannot form. The emotionally difficult move is to keep your expenses where they are when your income rises, to let the surplus accumulate, to resist the urge to broadcast progress through consumption. This restraint creates margin. Margin creates options. Options create freedom. This requires indifference to other people's opinions. You will drive the same car longer than feels socially comfortable. You will live in the same place while others upgrade. You will appear stagnant to people who measure success through visible spending. That's fine. You are not competing with them. You are competing with your past behavior. Comparison is one of the fastest ways to sabotage yourself. There will always be someone ahead of you. If you turn that into envy or resentment, you poison your own judgment. Emotional decisions around money are almost always expensive. History is full of examples proving that income alone does not determine outcomes. Behavior does. People who earn well but spend impulsively struggle. People who earn modestly but live deliberately build security. The difference is not intelligence, it's restraint. Avoiding stupidity is far more important than trying to be brilliant. Don't take on debt for things that don't produce value. Don't interrupt compounding for short-term pleasure. Don't gamble on shortcuts. Don't spend to impress. Don't invest in what you don't understand. Don't trust people who profit from your agreement. Don't let rising income automatically turn into rising expenses. If you simply avoid these errors, you end up ahead of most people by default. What actually separates those who succeed from those who stagnate is learning. Relentless, ongoing learning. The most effective people read constantly, not for entertainment, but for understanding. They study how systems work, how incentives shape behavior, how small advantages compound over time. Knowledge is widely available. Ignoring it is a choice, and it's an expensive one. Learning should be treated as a daily obligation to yourself. An hour invested in becoming more valuable pays dividends for decades. Skills compound just like money. Communication improves opportunity. Competence attracts reward. The marketplace does not respond to wishes. It responds to usefulness. This process is slow. That's the part people hate. Skills don't pay off immediately. Neither does saving. Neither does compounding. Everything worthwhile demands patience up front. Impatience is the common thread tying together most financial failures. If you're willing to tolerate discomfort now, you buy flexibility later. Most people refuse that trade and then rationalize the outcome. Short-term comfort leads to long-term constraint. Short-term discipline leads to long-term freedom. Your mindset matters more than you think. Envy, resentment, self-pity, and comparison distort judgment. They push you toward performative decisions instead of productive ones. You stop focusing on what you need to build and start reacting to what others appear to have. What actually matters is peace, not panicking over small emergencies, not being trapped by obligations, owning your time instead of selling every hour out of necessity. That kind of freedom does not come from looking successful. It comes from quietly becoming secure while no one is paying attention. Real wealth is quiet. Quiet doesn't get applause. Quiet doesn't get likes. Quiet doesn't impress coworkers or neighbors. But quiet works. Loud wealth is usually fake or fragile. Quiet wealth is resilient. When you don't advertise what you have, you don't feel pressured to defend it, explain it, or spend it to prove anything. Most people are trapped in performance. They are constantly signaling success to an audience that doesn't care and won't help them when things go wrong. The expensive car, the designer clothes, the flashy vacations are not rewards. They are obligations. They lock you into a level of spending that forces you to keep running even when you're exhausted. The irony is that many of the people being envied are not ahead at all. They are leveraged, stressed, and one missed paycheck away from real trouble. They look comfortable, they are fragile. The people who are actually winning do not look like winners from the outside. They blend in. They shop without drawing attention. They don't talk about money. They don't need to. Chasing appearances forces you to spend future freedom for present validation, and validation fades quickly. Payments do not. Freedom compounds quietly. Lower expenses and higher savings strengthen your position month after month. Stress decreases. Options increase. Clarity improves. This is what the first 100,000 buys you. Not luxury, not status, momentum. Once momentum exists, the game changes. Not because you become wiser overnight, but because compounding finally has enough fuel to matter. At an ordinary rate of return, money begins doing work you could never do on your own. The machine turns on. But before that happens, you have to build the machine. And building it is the worst part. Most people never get there because they confuse boredom with failure. Boredom is not a signal to stop. It's a signal that the system is working. If you stay on the path long enough, the outcome becomes inevitable. Not because of luck, but because math eventually overwhelms emotion. Time favors the patient. It always has. If this message challenged you, that's a good sign. Real progress is uncomfortable at first because it forces you to confront habits most people avoid examining. Wealth is not built through dramatic moments or lucky breaks. It's built through quiet, disciplined decisions repeated consistently over time. If you found value in this, take one small action today. Pay yourself first. Track your spending honestly. Cut one expense that doesn't matter. Begin acting like your future deserves respect. And if you want more long-form, no-nonsense breakdowns like this content that focuses on real behavior, real math, and real freedom, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next part. This series continues. The principles build, and the earlier you start, the more powerful the results become. Thank you for listening.